Reality doesn't respond to what you want. It responds to who you are while wanting it. Most people live their lives chasing outcomes, thinking reality is a neutral stage reacting to their actions. But what if it isn't? What if the version of you observing the world is the very thing creating it? This isn't a metaphor. This is physics. Quantum physics. The observer effect isn't just a strange scientific footnote. It's the blueprint of how life actually works. You've been told to dream bigger, set goals, think positively. But underneath the surface, there's something more powerful shaping your life, your frequency. The state of being you wake up in, walk in, speak from, that's the signal the universe reads. The field doesn't listen to what you say, it listens to what you are. This isn't about fixing your life. It's about shifting the version of you who's observing it. Let's begin. You think you're observing reality, but what you're really seeing is the past playing itself out through your body, your thoughts, your emotions, again and again, like a song stuck on loop. And the worst part, you've called it normal. You've mistaken familiarity for truth, repetition for stability, and programming for personality. From the moment you open your eyes each morning, your body doesn't just wake up. It remembers. It remembers who you were yesterday. It remembers the stories you keep telling, the emotions you keep recycling, the expectations you keep clinging to. Long before your conscious mind kicks in, your nervous system has already chosen who you'll be today. It's not your fault. The loop began early. Before you could speak or think for yourself, you were already absorbing the patterns of those around you. Parents, teachers, culture. They didn't mean harm. They were passing down what was passed to them. Safety, obedience, predictability. You were taught how to behave, what to fear, who to trust, and who to become. Over time, those lessons weren't just information. They became your identity. And every time you reinforce that identity with emotion, thought, and reaction, you're not observing the world, you're reprojecting your past onto it. This is why change feels impossible for so many. Not because you're lazy, not because you're broken, but because you're trying to create a new life while broadcasting the same signal. The signal of fear, of self-doubt, of lack. And the field, the invisible quantum space that responds to your vibration, has no choice but to mirror that. Not because it's punishing you, but because it's loyal to coherence. That's how reality works. People try to break the loop by forcing new habits, repeating affirmations, setting goals, and some of that helps. But if underneath the surface you're still carrying the energetic imprint of your old self, the results won't last. You'll think it's you, that maybe you're not meant to change, that maybe your vision was too ambitious. But the truth is simpler. You're not being punished, you're just being reflected. Some truths, however, are too volatile to explain fully here. That's why we created Insights Academy, a free private newsletter where we share what can't be said on YouTube. You'll also get a free digital copy of the Kabbalion, only for a limited time. Link in the description. So let's get honest. The version of you that's been living this life, the one who wakes up bracing for disappointment, who expects things to go wrong, who prepares for rejection, that version was crafted for survival. It's not who you truly are. It's who you had to become to make it through a world that never asked what you really needed. And now, that survival mode has become your frequency. A frequency that shapes the people you attract, the opportunities you miss, and the emotions you live in without even realizing it. You've probably seen glimpses of another version of yourself, the one who feels grounded, who trusts, who moves with clarity, who doesn't live in the past. That version of you isn't some future goal. It already exists, in another frequency, waiting to be tuned into. But here's the catch. You can't reach that timeline by dragging your old identity into it. You can't become something new while rehearsing the emotional signature of someone outdated. That's what the observer effect really means. It's not just that your attention collapses reality into form. It's that the version of you who is observing is the one deciding what collapses. You are not a camera recording life. You are a projector casting it. Change the film, and the world starts to look different. Not because the world changed first, but because you did. So the real question is this: which version of you is watching your life unfold right now? And is that the version who should be holding the pen? Most people believe that reality is something out there, separate, static, waiting to be discovered. But it isn't. Reality isn't fixed. It's fluid, alive, and deeply entangled with the one observing it, you. And that's where everything changes. Because the moment you stop seeing yourself as a passive observer and start recognizing yourself as an active participant, the old illusion begins to collapse. The observer effect in quantum physics tells us that the act of observation collapses potential into form. But it's not just about looking, it's about who's looking. The state of the observer matters. That's the key, and most people never realize it. You aren't just watching your life unfold, you are influencing it in real time. You're not standing at a distance, you're in it, embedded, intertwined. Imagine the quantum field like an infinite canvas, shimmering with possibility. Every potential future is already there, waiting. But which one becomes real? The one that aligns with the signal of the observer, not the observer's dreams, not their goals, their state, their frequency, their chemistry, their emotional baseline. The universe doesn't rearrange itself based on what you want. It responds to who you are while you're wanting. And who you are is more than a list of traits or beliefs. Who you are is a frequency, a vibrational signature. Every thought you think sends out an electrical signal. Every emotion you feel sends out a magnetic one. Together, these create your broadcast. That signal interacts with the quantum field and determines which version of reality collapses into your experience. That's not magic. That's coherence. The field is always listening, not to your words, but to your alignment. Not to your affirmations, but to your embodiment. This is why you can say all the right things, meditate every morning, visualize your ideal life, and still feel stuck. Because if underneath it all, your state is still wrapped in anxiety, scarcity, resentment, or self-doubt, then that's what the field will mirror back. Not to punish you, but to stay loyal to what's being broadcast. Most people don't realize that the signal they're emitting isn't coming from their intentions, it's coming from their identity, from the version of themselves they're still being. Think about it like this: every version of your future already exists, infinite timelines, all playing out in the quantum field, but you don't get to live them all. You only experience the one that matches your current state, not the one you wish for, not the one you're working hard to reach, the one that aligns with who you are right now. That's what collapsing a timeline means. It's not about effort, it's about embodiment. This is where people get stuck. They think they need to work harder to get what they want. But the truth is, they need to become the version of themselves who already has it. And that means shifting the observer. Because it's not just observation that changes outcomes, it's the internal state of the observer. You can't observe from fear and expect peace. You can't observe from guilt and expect freedom. You can't observe from lack and expect abundance. The field doesn't work that way. It doesn't respond to hope. It responds to resonance. So let me ask you, who have you been while watching your life? What emotional posture do you wake up in? What chemical identity are you wearing like a skin? Because that's what's writing your story. Not your thoughts, not your words, your vibration. And once you accept that, you stop trying to manipulate the world and start mastering the signal. You stop trying to chase timelines and start collapsing them. The observer is not a spectator. The observer is the author, and reality is your manuscript. But the field only responds to the frequency of truth. So if you want to write a different story, you can't just think it. You have to become the one who would live it. The version of you that's creating your current reality isn't new. It's ancient. Not in years, but in repetition. It's not just who you've become, it's who you've been rehearsing. You've practiced this identity so well, you forgot it was a performance. You wake up each day, and before you take a single conscious breath, your body is already being you, the old you. The one built from 1,000 moments of fear, disappointment, rejection, and adaptation. And that version of you, it isn't truth. It's memory trapped in motion, emotion trapped in chemistry. It's a signal, not a self. And it's been broadcasting for years. We think of identity as something solid, unchanging. But identity is a frequency, a set of neurochemical patterns fired so many times they became automatic. It's not just who you are emotionally. It's who you are biologically. And biology doesn't change through effort. It changes through state, through energy, through repetition of a new signal. Most of the time, you're not actually responding to the present moment. You're reacting to your history, not because you want to, but because your nervous system has memorized a particular way of being. A way of tensing when things get too good. A way of doubting when something feels aligned. A way of preparing for loss, even when love shows up. These aren't personality quirks. They're survival codes, written into the fabric of your old self by experiences that once hurt too much to fully feel. So your system learned how to avoid them. It built a version of you that could survive the pain. And you called that self me. But you were never meant to stay that version. That was the emergency suit, not the true skin. And yet, here you are, years later, still carrying the emotional residue of moments long gone. Still living inside an identity that was never chosen, only inherited. And the cost? You keep recreating the same reality, not because you're flawed, but because the field is consistent. It doesn't care about what you desire if you're still embodying what you fear. Every time you choose to stay in guilt, in anxiety, in self-sabotage, you're strengthening the signal of your past. And the field listens. It mirrors, not as punishment, but as precision. The universe isn't biased, it's responsive. And it's responding to who you're being, not who you're pretending to be for a few minutes each morning. This is why the old self is so dangerous. Because it hides in the body. It wears the face of familiarity. It convinces you that this is just who you are. But it's not. It's just a practiced pattern. A song you've played on loop for so long, you forgot there was ever another track. And here's the strange truth. That version of you is comfortable, not because it feels good, but because it's familiar. And the nervous system equates familiarity with safety, even if it hurts. That's the real trap. Not the pain itself, but the comfort in knowing what to expect. The brain loves patterns. The body loves predictability. So you become addicted to the emotions that match your old identity. That's why letting go feels terrifying. Not because you're losing yourself, but because you're losing the illusion that kept you feeling safe. But safety isn't the goal. Expansion is. Alignment is. Freedom is. And none of that can exist inside the signal of your past. So the work is not about fixing yourself. It's about releasing the version of you who was wired to survive, thanking it for what it protected, and letting it go so something new can emerge, not built by pain, but revealed through truth. Because the future you isn't hiding in some distant timeline. They're vibrating at a frequency your old self can't reach. And the only thing standing between you and that version is the signal you're still rehearsing. People talk about manifestation like it's wishful thinking with better branding. Vision boards, scripting, visualization, all built on the idea that if you think hard enough, if you want it bad enough, the universe will bend to your will. But here's the truth. The universe doesn't care what you say you want. It cares who you are while you're wanting it. Because the field doesn't speak in words, it speaks in signals. You don't manifest what you desire, you manifest what you broadcast. That broadcast is not your affirmations or your plans. It's the frequency of your dominant state, the baseline emotions you live inside when no one is watching. You may write down, "I am abundant," but if your nervous system is soaked in scarcity and your breath tightens when you think about money, the field listens to that. It hears lack. It mirrors fear. And it delivers accordingly, not out of malice, but out of loyalty to coherence. Coherence is the law. In quantum terms, it's the alignment between thought, feeling, and being. When you say one thing but feel another, the signal gets scrambled. When you try to project success while carrying the emotional signature of failure, the field gets confused, and it doesn't reward confusion. It mirrors it. The same way a radio receiver can only pick up a station that matches its frequency, your reality only reflects the station you're truly tuned into. That's why manifestation without identity work becomes a loop of frustration. You can say all the right things, do all the right rituals, but if you're still carrying the emotional residue of your old self, nothing shifts. You're trying to pull in a new timeline with the gravity of your past, and it doesn't work. Not because you're unworthy, but because the timeline you're reaching for doesn't recognize the version of you who's asking for it. That future doesn't respond to your hope. It responds to your resonance. You are broadcasting all the time, through the way you breathe, the way you speak to yourself, the way you feel when no one is watching. Every micro-emotion, every subtle thought sends a signal, and those signals stack. They form the energetic you that the field responds to. That's why the work isn't about chasing what you want. It's about becoming someone who no longer needs to chase, because they're already living in the frequency of the thing they once desired. This is not performance. This is embodiment. Real change doesn't happen in the future. It happens in the now, in the shift from wanting to being, from visualizing the goal to becoming the one who no longer needs to visualize it, because they've already aligned with it, because they are it. You don't become magnetic by trying harder. You become magnetic by clearing the interference, by releasing the emotional noise of your past self and stabilizing in a new signal. The reason this is hard isn't because the universe is withholding. It's because your old identity is still leading the broadcast, and that identity is addicted to the very feelings that block your expansion. Fear, doubt, impatience, shame. These aren't random. They're chemical signatures your body has been trained to expect. Emotions you unconsciously seek out because they reinforce the story you've told yourself about who you are and what's possible for you. The shift begins when you stop trying to prove your worth to the universe and instead start aligning with the version of you who no longer doubts it. That version doesn't hustle for validation. They don't perform abundance, they embody it. They don't collapse timelines with their thoughts. They collapse them with their being. Because their internal state, their emotional frequency, and their lived choices all send one clear signal: I am already it. So ask yourself, who have you been being while asking for change? What version of you is sending the signal the universe keeps receiving? And more importantly, who do you need to become? Not someday, but now, to start collapsing the timeline that's been waiting for you all along. You've been told you have to build your future. Work for it. Climb toward it like it's sitting at the top of some distant mountain you haven't reached yet. But here's the truth they never taught you. The future doesn't need to be built. It already exists. Not in front of you, but beside you, in a different frequency, a parallel timeline, vibrating just outside the reach of the self you've been rehearsing. You don't create it by force. You access it by alignment. In the quantum field, every potential version of you already exists. The one who's free, the one who's healthy, the one who walks with power, clarity, and grounded presence. Those timelines aren't imaginary, they are real possibilities waiting to be observed by a new version of you. And when that version becomes the one doing the observing, the timeline collapses into form. The field responds immediately, not because you earned it, but because you tuned into it. But most people never access these alternate futures, not because they're not available, but because they're stuck identifying with the self who can't see them, the self who doubts, who clings to struggle, who believes change must be earned through suffering. That self isn't bad, it's just outdated. And every time you choose to embody that identity, you tune your signal to a reality that matches it. Not because the universe is punishing you, but because it's responding with perfect fidelity. This is why striving doesn't work. The more you chase the future from the vibration of lack, the more you reinforce the belief that you're separate from it. You don't reach new timelines by effort alone. You reach them through energetic compatibility. You must become the version of you that already lives there. This is not fantasy. This is physics. You don't attract what you want. You attract what you're coherent with. So let's get honest. How often do you try to change your life by manipulating external circumstances, working harder, thinking more positively, trying to control outcomes, while staying emotionally loyal to the same identity that created your current situation? How often do you say, "I am ready," while your nervous system's still bracing for loss? How often do you visualize success while your breath stays shallow, your jaw stays tense, your chest stays tight? Your future isn't waiting for you to work harder. It's waiting for you to let go of the frequency that keeps pulling you backward. The only thing standing between you and the next version of your life is the identity you keep reinforcing, the thoughts you keep recycling, the emotions you keep feeding, the posture you keep waking up in. The future is available the moment you decide to stabilize a new signal. Not temporarily, not performatively, but as a lived truth, repeated so consistently that the field has no choice but to match it. The new you, the version of you who already lives in alignment with your deepest truth, doesn't need to be invented. They already exist. Your work is not to create them, but to select them, to choose them over the safety of the known, over the addiction to suffering, over the comfort of staying small. And selection isn't something that happens once. It's something you become every single day. Every time you breathe deeper instead of tensing up, you shift. Every time you respond with trust instead of fear, you shift. Every time you let go of the story that says, "I'm not ready," and instead act from the self who already is, you collapse a new timeline into your experience. That's how it works. Not in theory. In your body. In your frequency. In the choices you make. When no one's watching. The field doesn't need your effort. It needs your resonance. And the future doesn't need to be earned. It only needs to be matched. Awareness is not transformation. Knowing this information won't change your life. Becoming it will. And that's where most people get stuck. They think insight is the finish line when it's only the doorway. Real change doesn't come from understanding. It comes from energetic commitment, moment after moment, choice after choice. When you interrupt the loop and behave as the future self, even when it's uncomfortable, even when the old self is screaming for control. The observer effect isn't just a clever idea. It's a real-time feedback loop that reads your emotional frequency and organizes reality around it. So, if you want different results, you have to change your signal not occasionally, but consistently. This is what embodiment means. Not pretending, not saying the right things, but becoming a living transmission of the version of you who no longer needs to fix, force, or prove, a version that already is. This isn't about performance, it's about chemistry, and chemistry doesn't lie. Your thoughts can say one thing, but your breath, your posture, your voice, your cellular memory, they all tell the truth. And the field listens to the truth. So when fear arises, and it will, you don't spiral into old habits. You meet it. You notice the pattern that wants to take over, the one that says, stay small, play it safe. You're not ready, and you choose differently, not once, but again and again. That's the work. That's how new timelines stabilize, through repetition, through integrity with the version of you who already lives in the frequency you're trying to manifest. You've spent years rehearsing the emotional chemistry of the old self, years becoming fluent in doubt, anxiety, unworthiness, and fear. Don't expect your body to let that go overnight. It won't, but it doesn't need to. What it needs is for you to stop believing those signals are truth. What it needs is for you to override them, not with force, but with consistency. New neural pathways don't form through willpower alone. They form through embodiment, through action, through new emotion, And when that becomes your new normal, the field shifts. This is the difference between trying to manifest and living as if. When you try to manifest, you're still in the energy of seeking. When you live as if, you collapse the gap. Because the observer, the real you, is now in coherence with the timeline you used to chase. The field doesn't reward wishful thinking. It responds to alignment, to regulation, to presence. And presence isn't something you wait for. It's something you practice. There will be days where the old self feels louder than ever, where you slip into old thoughts, old postures, old behaviors. That doesn't mean you failed. It means your nervous system is recalibrating. Don't shame the old self. Witness it, interrupt it, love it for what it protected, then return to the breath, to the body, to the signal. Every time you do that, you pull yourself out of the gravitational pull of your past, and you reinforce the neural and energetic pathways of your future. This isn't easy, but it is simple. You're not here to perform transformation. You're here to embody it. And that means living in integrity with your future self before the world reflects it back to you. That's real faith, real alchemy, not hoping for change, but becoming it first. You collapse timelines not by waiting for the mirror to change, but by becoming the reflection worth mirroring. There's a reason change feels hard, even when you want it. It's not because you're lazy, or weak, or broken. It's because your nervous system was designed to protect you, not evolve you. And what it protects you from most is the unknown. You say you want to shift into a new life, a new self, a new frequency. But if your nervous system doesn't recognize that future as safe, it will pull you back every time. Not because it hates growth, but because it fears uncertainty more than anything. This is why people stay stuck in cycles that no longer serve them, not because they lack desire, but because their body doesn't feel safe outside the familiar. You could be standing at the edge of a breakthrough, one decision away from a new timeline, and still sabotage it. Not because you're weak, but because your nervous system still sees safety in the familiar, even if the familiar is painful. And here's the uncomfortable truth. You can't outthink this. You can't mindset your way past the biology. Transformation isn't an intellectual exercise, it's a somatic one. Until your body feels safe in the frequency of your future, it won't let you hold it. This is why so many people get a glimpse of what's possible, a moment of alignment, a burst of clarity, a temporary manifestation, only to watch it fade. Their body wasn't calibrated to stay there. The field doesn't just read your energy, it reads your regulation. Can you stay open when things get uncertain? Can you breathe through discomfort without collapsing into old identities? Can you meet the unknown with curiosity instead of control? These are the real skills of alignment, not vision boards, not toxic positivity, but nervous system coherence. Because when your body stops fighting the unknown, you start accessing timelines that used to feel out of reach. You've been taught that control creates safety, but control is just the trauma response of a dysregulated system. Real safety doesn't come from controlling outcomes. It comes from building internal resilience. The ability to stay grounded, soft, and responsive in the face of intensity. That's how you show your body the future is safe. That's how you teach your cells to stop clinging to the past. You regulate first. The field follows second. So, how do you do that? You start noticing the moment your body tightens. When your shoulders rise, your breath shortens, your thoughts race. That's the signal. That's the exact moment your nervous system is trying to pull you back into the frequency of the old self. And that's your window. Instead of reacting, you pause, you anchor. You breathe into the space between stimulus and response. That pause is the portal. It's where old timelines lose their grip and new ones become accessible. And this is where the real practice lives. Not in grand gestures, but in micro moments. In how you walk into a room. In how you speak to yourself when no one hears. In how you eat, how you rest, how you breathe. Your entire life is a ceremony of signals. And every signal you send is either a vote for the old self or a commitment to the new one. You're not just healing. You're reprogramming the interface between consciousness and reality, and it runs through your body. Here's the thing. Your nervous system isn't the enemy. It's the gateway. It's not resisting you out of sabotage, but out of survival. It's doing its job, but now your job is to evolve it. To show it that alignment isn't dangerous, that expansion doesn't mean chaos, that you can step into the unknown and remain regulated, centered, and clear. And when your nervous system gets the message, everything begins to change. Because the field doesn't just mirror your thoughts, it mirrors your regulation, your ability to hold expansion without collapse, to sit in uncertainty without scrambling for control. And when you can do that consistently, the future timelines you've been chasing start chasing you. You don't create your future. You tune into it. That's the shift most people never make, because they're too busy trying to force a new reality with the same emotional signal that built the old one. But the future doesn't live in your strategy. It lives in your state. And the longer you chase it from the energy of lack, the further it runs. This is why so many people burn out manifesting, visualizing, scripting, meditating, all the right techniques, but the wrong frequency. Because they haven't yet realized that the version of them who finally receives is not the version who's still searching. There is no future moment where it all clicks into place unless you become the person it clicks for. And that becoming doesn't happen someday. It happens now, in this breath, in this choice, in this signal. This is the paradox. When you stop trying to escape the present moment and fully enter it, the timeline you thought was out there becomes available here. Because the future doesn't arrive, it's revealed. And it's revealed through coherence. Coherence isn't thinking positively. It's when your thoughts, emotions, and actions broadcast one unified frequency, without static, without contradiction. The old self is incoherent. It wants change but lives in fear. It asks for love but runs from intimacy. It visualizes abundance while vibrating scarcity. And the field doesn't respond to what you say, it responds to what you are. When your signal is clean, when your breath, your posture, your presence all reflect the same inner truth, that's when timelines collapse. That's when the impossible becomes inevitable. And here's the radical truth. The future version of you already exists. You don't have to build them. You don't have to earn them. You have to remember them. You have to choose them. Every moment you align with their signal, you become a little more magnetic, a little more clear, a little more available to realities you used to only dream about. That version of you doesn't wait for external permission. They don't bargain with the universe. They don't prove their worth. They simply exist in a different rhythm, one that attracts the experiences, people, and outcomes that match their frequency. And you can step into that rhythm now. This is embodiment, when your body becomes the proof of your belief, when you stop needing external confirmation because you feel the shift within. And the more you live from that feeling, the more reality organizes itself around it. It's not magic, it's physics, the observer effect in action. The moment you align your signal, the field responds instantly. Not because you forced it, but because you became it. And this is where most people fall off track. They think if nothing shifts externally, it means the internal work isn't working. But that's the trap. Because the moment you start looking again for evidence, you've left the signal, you've left the now, and the field notices. The frequency of the future isn't accessed through impatience, it's accessed through stability, through integrity, through full spectrum coherence with the version of you that already holds the life you say you want. So stop asking if it's working. Ask instead, am I being the version it works for? Because when you are, there's nothing else to do. The field already received your broadcast. The dominoes have already begun to fall. Your job now is to keep holding the frequency long enough for reality to catch up. No chasing, no proving, just becoming, again and again and again. The future isn't waiting for you to be ready. It's waiting for you to remember who you already are. This isn't just about changing your life. It's about remembering that you were never just the observer. You were always the creator. From the moment you woke up in this world, you were taught to see life as something that happens to you. You were trained to react, to survive, to play by the rules of a reality that seemed fixed. But the deeper truth is, reality has always been listening, and it listens not with ears, but with resonance. Your resonance. The signal you emit before you speak a word, the state you carry before you act, the presence you bring to this moment. That's the brushstroke painting your future. The observer effect was never a footnote in physics textbooks. It was a whisper from the universe telling you the truth most will spend their entire lives denying. You are not watching the movie. You are writing it, editing it, directing it, starring in it. But for most people, their script is recycled. Old pages soaked in fear, shame, lack, and limitation. They think they're evolving, but the signal stays the same. And the universe, ever faithful to what you are, keeps reflecting it back. But here's what changes everything. The moment you realize that who you think you are is just a program, a well-rehearsed character, a loop. And the moment you decide, not hope, not wish, but truly decide, to embody something different, the entire structure starts to shift. Not because the world suddenly gets easier, but because you stop needing the world to shift in order to feel powerful. You become the cause, not the effect. This is the real observer effect, the forgotten alchemy of being. You collapse timelines not by predicting the outcome, but by becoming the version of you it already belongs to. The shift isn't external, it's existential. You become the proof of the future in the present. And that, right there, is the most powerful thing a human being can do. It's not about faking it until you make it. It's about embodying it until there's nothing left to fake. And embodiment isn't about perfection. It's about commitment. When fear rises, you pause. When your old self begs to return, you choose otherwise. When the moment feels familiar, you respond in a way you never have before. That's how the neural pathways begin to rewire. That's how the signal changes. That's how the universe stops reflecting who you were and starts responding to who you've become. Remember, reality doesn't need time, it needs alignment. And the fastest way to shift your life is to stop outsourcing your power to what's outside and start taking radical ownership of what's inside. Not just your thoughts, but your breath, your posture, your tone, your rituals, your energy. Because energy doesn't lie. You can say the words, set the goals, visualize the outcomes, but if your body still echoes the frequency of the past, the future can't find you. It's not punishment. It's resonance. The field is always fair, always matching, always responding to what you broadcast, not what you beg for. So here's the final truth. The version of you who already lives the life you desire is not imaginary. It's not fantasy. It's simply a frequency, one you can step into right now, if you're willing to let go of the identity that's still tethered to the old signal. That's the price. Not your effort, not your time, your old story. If you want to step into that version, do it now. Breathe like them, speak like them, move like them, choose like them. That's how timelines collapse. That's how futures are unlocked. And that's how the universe stops being a mystery and starts becoming a mirror. And if this message has stirred something deep within you, if you're done living as the passive observer of your life and ready to step into the role of conscious creator, then don't stay on the surface. Join our Insights Academy newsletter, where we explore the truths that are too real for the algorithm. You'll also receive a free copy of the Kybalion, a foundational Hermetic text that lays bare the principles behind everything you've just learned. Don't miss this. It's more than a resource. It's a key. If this video resonated with you, let us know by commenting, "I understood it."